Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. We of course just had the big season 5 reloaded update for Warzone, which added in a lot of weapon tuning. We've previously gone ahead and looked at some of the best weapons to be using, but today we are specifically focused on the top 10 best loadouts to be using after the mid-season update, because honestly, now versus the start of the season, things are pretty different because of all the weapon adjustments and weapon changes that were introduced with the mid-season patch. So as we go over it all today, if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. Would be seriously appreciated. Let's go for 3,500 likes on this video, see if we can hit that. And of course, if you're new to the channel, or if you happen to be a part of the 54% of viewers who have not already subscribed, this is the place to be for absolutely everything going on in COD. News, intel, updates, loadouts, tips, it is all right here. So feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. Also, if you're looking to stock up on anything from the G Fuel site, a new tub, some shaker cups, some starter packs, Code WARZONE has got you covered with that nice 10 to 30% off discount. Now, as always, we've got our 10 loadouts here. We're gonna go through each one of them one by one and break down what I think they deserve to be in the top 10 in terms of the best loadouts out there right now. But as always, we're gonna start off with our 2 regain classes. I'll use these if I die in game, go to the gulag, win that, come back, and I need to regain, or sometimes I'll use these after I'm grabbing my second loadout if I wanna grab restock, or in the case of sniping, tempered. Both of those can be super useful, combat scout, or amped as well if you wanna change up your perks. But these are the 2 loadouts that I'm not usually ever grabbing first, unless of course, like I said, I'm coming back from a gulag win or something like that. But first up, we got a combination of the Grau and the M19. This used to be the Psychov here, but that kind of got nerfed into the ground, so now the M19 is sort of my go-to. But this is a pretty standard setup. It's reliable, it's consistent, that's why I have it on my regain loadout. We're really focused on maximizing efficiency and ammo here so we can really get back into the game, hence regain loadout. We're going for monolithic suppressor, Archangel barrel, commando foregrip, 60 round mags, and also fully loaded on the Grau. If you just wanted to use the Grau on a regular loadout, not a regain one, drop fully loaded, put on the tac laser, and you got a standard Grau setup there. Then for the M19, this will be the same on both regain loadouts. We got the monolithic suppressor, the super barrel, since we are using this as just a standard single pistol. I also go for the lightweight trigger to spam it a bit more, the 32 round mags, and again, fully loaded to maximize that pistol and that SMG ammo. If I found like an OTS on the ground or something, I can pick that up, and I got max ammo for that, and I'm good to go. I'm pretty much back in the game. Also for my regain loadouts, double time restock combat scout is sort of my go-to for a more aggressive, like AR primary regain loadout. I also use thermite and stuns on all my classes. But for my sniper loadout, I obviously don't use the exact same thing. I actually use tempered because I feel like getting that fully plated up ability there whenever you grab the loadout is pretty crucial if you're in a regain situation. That can help you out if you're not playing as aggressive like you would be with a sniper versus an AR. But for the setup here, I do go for the car. Again, like I said, I'm using the M19, same exact setup as on the last regain setup. And on the car, again, we're basing this on maximizing ammo, so obviously we're going to be using fully loaded. Usually I drop that and put on the sport comb stock. We'll talk more about that later on into the video, but standard car setup otherwise, monolithic suppressor, 27.6 inch barrel, tac laser for better speed and stability, and then also the sniper scope. And I go ahead and I use that cross thread reticle because I really like the look of that one. But yeah, both of these loadouts, great for regaining late game if you need to switch to restock and get that, or tempered and you need to get that. These are great setups to use for those purposes. But getting into the more typical loadouts, starting off here, we're using the Fara and the OTS. This is probably going to be my #1 go-to loadout in the game right now, just because of all the buffs and nerfs that took place. The Krig obviously got dethroned, I think, is like the #1 go-to weapon, and we've already been talking about this since earlier on last week. The Fara is the new Krig and has been for a bit. It's got that better TTK. The recoil, while it's a little bit more than the Krig's, is still super, super easy in my opinion. It's a very straightforward weapon, very easy to use. So it's sort of low risk, high reward in that sense. And the OTS got a slight damage range nerf on the mid-season update, but its damage up close through 10 meters is still phenomenal, so it's going to fry. Probably the best go-to SMG and best secondary in the game right now, at least in my opinion. But for the attachments here for the Fara, Grew suppressor, RPK barrel, sort of the go-to there for muzzle and barrel combos. For the underbarrel, you could either go for the Spetsnaz grip or the speed grip. Speed grip's going to help out more specifically with the horizontal recoil, which is a bit more unpredictable. Spetsnaz is going to help out with horizontal and vertical. A little bit more consistent here, but the speed grip is a solid alternative in my opinion. We're also going for the 60 round mags and then the 3x optic. I get asked a million times what my favorite reticles are. For the base reticles, the precision is probably the best looking, but if you have the Coral Reef Milano bundle, that's where this deep sea reticle comes from. I love the look of this one. It's basically like a makeshift blue dot. So if you go to the Milano and look up for the Coral Reef blueprint, you'll be able to find that bundle if you want to get this reticle, but by no means is that necessary. It's more so just preference there, but I use that on all my optics just because I like the way it looks. And for the OTS, it's the same copy and paste Cold War setup that we've been using for a while now. Grew suppressor, task force barrel, Tiger team spotlight, the VDV, fast mag because that reload is just extra spicy on the OTS, then either you can run the Serpent Wrap to get a more snappy ADS, or you can go for the skeletal stock and get some better movement and mobility. Sort of just comes down to preference there. Personally though, I really like the snappiness of the Serpent Wrap. Also, obviously I'm using overkill in this case, and I like to go for Combat Scout, but I do switch up between Combat Scout and Amped quite a bit. That really just comes down to preference if you want the legal wall hacks or if you want the faster swapping. But moving on, loadout number 2 is going to be the C58 and the PPSH. The C58 did see some recoil changes with the Reloaded update, and it's also seen some nerfs recently, but personally, I still think it's one of the better rifle options in the game right now. It's very similar to the AMAX in a lot of ways, or what the AMAX was before. It's definitely a solid option and alternative to the Fara if you want a more high skill weapon. It's going to be a bit harder to use, but if you're able to land your shots, it is going to fry relatively quickly. It's got a pretty solid TTK, especially if you can land a couple of headshots or some chest shots in there. It's still going to be a very good and very consistent rifle in all ranges. And then the PPSH got a slight buff with the mid-season update. It actually is easier to land shots now because they reduced the sway and the kick, so it's going to be a bit more accurate. And honestly, it's just a really consistent SMG. Huge magazine capacity, great mobility, like all around, it's a W in my book. Going into the C58 setup here, same old agency suppressor, task force barrel for the best control, range, and velocity, field agent grip for even more control, the 45 round drum to keep it snappy but also get some extra ammo, and the 3x optic yet again. Then for the PPSH, this is the true copy and paste Cold War setup. Grew suppressor, task force barrel, of course, better range, velocity, and control. Tiger team spotlight for better mobility so you can fly and fry. The 71 round drum because it doesn't really hurt your mobility all that much and you can pretty much squad wipe without having to reload. Then also the Raider stock for better mobility as well. Now this loadout is one that I've been using a lot more recently. It's the Stoner and the MAC-10. The Stoner is probably the best ranged weapon in the game right now. Unfortunately though, it is sort of balanced out by the fact that its mobility just flat out sucks. This thing weighs 2,000 pounds and you're gonna be walking around like an elephant with this thing out. But that's why you have the MAC-10, one of the best weapons in the game for rotations and for mobility. You will literally fly with this thing and you will fry with this thing, so it's a great combination here in my opinion. I really enjoy this setup. You got to run amps in this case in my opinion because the LMG takeout is just disgustingly slow, right? So amp definitely helps out there, but the Stoner, insanely good at range. MAC-10, great up close, also great for sniper support as well. This is the combination that I really enjoy. For the Stoner, we're going for agency suppressor and the match grade barrel. You could go for task force, but it's going to make you even slower, hence why I go for match grade, but you get better control and velocity and range out of those two yet again. Field agent's going to help keep those shots on target over range. We're going for the 3x optic, and then for the last attachment, you could go for the Raider pad stock. You get some better mobility out of that, or I'd go for a magazine upgrade, probably the fast mag because obviously LMGs are very slow, but you could even go for the 120 round mag if you wanted to, maybe even the speed mag if you're okay with the slower ADS. You can sort of mess around there and go for your personal preference, but I feel like the Raider pad's a nice fifth and final attachment there, really rounds things out well. Then for the MAC-10, same old copy and paste, baby. Agency suppressor, task force barrel, Tiger team spotlight, 53 round drum, and the Raider stock. Next up, we've got another LMG SMG setup. This time it's going to be more of a higher skill setup in my opinion, primarily because we're focusing this one on the MG82. This thing has the best TTK over range. Simply put, it will literally melt everyone if you're able to land your shots, which is a bit harder because compared to pretty much every other weapon on the list today, this thing's recoil is not super ideal because that fire rate is so fast. You pretty much go straight vertical with it and you got to really work to control that. But if you're a decent player and you can learn a recoil pattern, this weapon is going to pay off the most in my opinion. Yes, it's going to be slow just like the Stoner because it is an LMG. That's why we got a super fast SMG setup with the Bullfrog here. You could also flip-flop literally any secondary we're using today. If you want the MAC-10 with the MG82, go for it. If you want the PPSH with the Stoner, go for it. Those are not like set in stone, right? Definitely flip-flop and mix and match because that's what makes loadouts fun. But these two together, great combination in my opinion yet again. Pretty much the same setup here as on the Stoner. Instead though, we are going for the fast mag in this case. So agency, match grade, field agent, those are all three absolute must-haves because the recoil, 3x optic yet again. But the fast mag here, I feel like you're reloading more with this thing than you are with the Stoner because the faster fire rates. So that quicker reload definitely comes in handy. And then for the Bullfrog, you'll never guess that it's pretty much the copy and paste setup yet again. We've got Grew suppressor, task force, Tiger team. Because you have like a base 50 or 55 round magazine, I don't feel like you need a magazine upgrade. It's just going to slow you down, so it's really not worth using. Go for the bruiser grip, and that combined with the Tiger team, you're literally going to be running around at hyperspeed. It's great. Then finally, we go for the skeletal stock, aka the Raider stock yet again. Moving on, this is sort of the loadout of the past. It's still good, but it's nowhere near where these two weapons once were, the Krig and the Modern Warfare MP5. Obviously, the Krig has received several nerfs. It is still the easiest gun to use in the game. I have zero idea why they decided to buff the recoil and reduce the recoil on the Krig, which is already the lowest recoil rifle in the game with the last update, but They did, so it's still super easy to use. It just doesn't hit hard. But because it is so easy to use, I feel like a lot of players are still going to flock towards this just because they don't want to have to work hard to use a weapon, right? It's point and shoot. It's pretty mindless in that sense. It'll still be one of the better weapons in the game because of that. Modern Warfare MP5, of course, has also received some nerfs recently, but it's still really good as an SMG. Pretty solid mobility even for an MW weapon, and it's just consistent, old, reliable in a lot of ways, so you can't go wrong with using either of these. Same setups as always, though, pretty much. Agency and mil spec for the muzzle and the barrel here. Like I said, no brainer here for the recoil, so you don't need an underbarrel. Instead, we go for the 60 round mag, the 3x optic head again, and the Raider stock to increase that mobility some. And on the MW MP5, of course, we're going for the monolithic integral suppressor. We've got the Merc foregrip, the 45 round mags, sleight of hand, and then also the collapsible stock to close things out there. And then to round out all the setups, we got a handful of sniper loadouts. I've really been enjoying sniping recently, and because we see so many different primaries being nerfed with their damage over range and whatnot, sniping for ranged fights is becoming better and better by the update. In this case, we're going for the Swiss and the EM2. The EM2 is fantastic for sniper support, but that said, this is definitely a slower setup. You're not going to be running around very fast with a sniper and a rifle out. Your movement and your mobility is not going to be phenomenal, simply put, but these two combined really work well together. Obviously, you have the long range with the Swiss here. It's great for sniping, probably my new favorite sniper in the game. And the EM2 hits like a truck up close, surprisingly, so you can get by using these on the same loadout. For the Swiss here, we're going for the Grew suppressor and the combat recon barrel for the best velocity. The 5mm laser, since this is basically like the tac laser for MW weapons. I go for the bruiser grip for some better mobility. You don't need an extra magazine here or a magazine upgrade because the reload's already pretty good, so instead I go for the serpent grip. You get some better ADS time. You could even go for airborne elastic wrap. Either of those will work great. You got a pretty snappy, very consistent sniper. Then for the EM2, we're basically building this for some of those closer range fights, but we also want some consistency as well. Because this weapon does have some more recoil, I go for agency and task force yet again. You gotta have field agent on there, but if you wanted this to be a bit faster, I'd recommend going for the Ranger barrel even. You could definitely flip-flop those and see which one you like more. Ranger won't give you as many pros, but it's gonna be slightly lighter, so you'll move a bit quicker. Then we go for the Microflex LED and the 40-round magazine on there too. Then of course, we gotta have a basic car setup because the car is one of the goats of Warzone weaponry, right? This time we're going all MW. You'll love to see it. Car and MP7. This is like a throwback Season 3 loadout of Warzone back in the MW era. It honestly works pretty well just because so many other SMGs have been nerfed with the TTK reductions that the MP7 is actually pretty solid. It's a great sniper support weapon. It has next to no recoil, decent mobility for an MW weapon, but its TTK through close and medium range fights is actually pretty good. In the car, we all know just how good this is. Same setup as before on the fully loaded setup, but like I said, instead of using fully loaded, we do go ahead and use the Sport Comb stock for a better ADS. Then for the MW MP7, we're going monolithic suppressor, recon barrel. That's better range, that's better control between those two. We get the tac laser for better speed and stability, the 60 round mags, then also the icon, the Stippy Grippy. And then for the final setup, this is my go-to sniper setup in general. While the other two, the car and the MP7 and the Swiss and the EM2 are great, my personal favorite though is still the Swiss and the MAC-10. This is two loadouts that we've already covered in terms of the attachments. Obviously, Grew suppressor, combat recon, 5mm bruiser, airborne elastic wrap, same as before, and same deal with the MAC-10, same Cold War copy and paste SMG setup here. But like I said, this is my personal favorite sniper setup. It's just so consistent across medium, close, and long range. You can't really go wrong. MAC-10's got you covered up close. Swiss has you covered at range. Great setup in general. And between all these loadouts, these are what I consider to be the top 10 best after the mid-season update. Hopefully this video helped you guys out. If it did, let me know by dropping a like on it. Would be seriously appreciated. And of course, if you are new to the channel or if you have not already subscribed, be sure to do so. We are on the road to 800K. This is the best place to be for everything going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I will catch you guys later. Peace out.